let's say we are holding a draft to build an all Chicago baseball team for 2023, and not the future, not for 3 or 4 years from now, not based on not based on contractual value or this or that. Your best baseball player. You're going to war for this season. Who is the number one pick? You're picking between the Cubs and White Sox.
My number one pick would be Dylan Cease.
Yeah.
Like, he's the best player on both teams.
Agreed.
I believe. You can't duplicate him on any other of the orders. Even if you believe that Lance Lynn will bounce back or Giolito's this, or you might get a season from Marcus Stroman or etc. on the Cubs, I think it's clear that, Dylan Cease is a Cy Young Award contender this year. Jameson Taillon might be eventually, but this guy is currently right there. And I think he's the best player overall out of both of these teams.
Luke,
I think I would
disagree or agree?
I agree. No, I totally agree with that. If I had to use my first pick, I was trying to think of, all right, what's the hardest thing to find? Where do you put that? If you don't take this guy, do you have the other guy? So, like, you have Tim Anderson and Dansby Swanson are two other big names. If you don't get one, you get the other. If we're just picking from the two teams, but it's hard to find an ace. Not every team has an ace. The Cubs have a roster of good pitchers, and hopefully an ace is within that roster of good pitchers and can develop into one. But finding an ace is not an easy thing. And Cease, like Herb was saying, he's a Cy Young guy. So Cease, to me, is easily the number one pick if you're drafting Chicago baseball players. After that, it gets kind of murky for me. I'm not sure where I'd go. I personally would take Dansby Swanson over Tim Anderson, but
that actually led into our next question. Who would you take between Dansby and TA? And I think that's right. I think that's the debate for the number 2 pick, unless someone wants to say differently.
I think so too. If we're saying only 2023 and all the considerations going into that, I say Tim Anderson's going to have a better 2023 than Dansby Swanson. Now, who's a better player currently right now? If we're just saying shortstop, who plays the position best, who can hit better? That's Dansby Swanson to me. Clearly, he posts, which is the most important thing. Playing, he hit 8 home runs last year. Awesome. Some can
played
say
every
that's
game.
And he gloves it like no other. Made a top-notch shortstop in his own right. Nico Horner moved to second base because he's so good. And I think Dansby Swanson is the better shortstop. But the question is, 2023, I would pick Tim Anderson over Dansby Swanson for considerations of Tim needs to get his money still. Dansby's got his money. He's in a different situation. He doesn't know the Wrigley Field conditions and everyday batting. Tim's been with the White Sox his whole career. So I think 2023, Tim Anderson, but Dansby, I believe, is the better player.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's you might be right, Herb. I would just say that the safer bet if you're building a team would be Dansby Swanson because he plays every day and he's been a little more consistent. Tim Anderson is kind of an X factor for a team, right? Like if you get good Tim Anderson, then it's a different story. So either one is a good choice. And I would think Nico would be potentially the next choice on that list. I'm not sure.
This is actually my question for Herb. Let's rewind 2 years ago, and I'm telling you we're going to have this conversation, and the name Luis Robert Jr. is not even going to come up in the first 3 or 4 picks. Are you shocked by that?
Yes. Last year, before the season started, Sean Anderson and I picked Luis Robert to be the MVP for the American League. And that wasn't out of anybody. There's a lot of people nationally that pick as the MVP because you see the raw talent. You see the defense, you see the hitting, you see the power, the speed, everything. The 5 tools that people speak about, he literally has. But with every White Sox comes another thing, injuries. He had multiple injuries last year. And so, yes, I see why people wouldn't pick him. That's why if this was a thing where we started this last year, I would have picked Luis Robert over Dylan Cease.
Yes,
but now I don't have confidence that he or Aloy or Yasmani or Yohan can finish the season. And that is my biggest concern. And so, his talent is limitless, but Yeah, I would be shocked if you would have said that to me. I was like, did he get traded? Who do we get?
And now,
If you were
conversely,
building for the future,
if I had told Luke a year ago that Nico Horner is going to be in this conversation, you would have been completely ecstatic.
Oh
right
yeah,
off
I'd have
the
been
bat.
thrilled the way it's played out. But again, it's the what have you done for me lately, right? And that's why we're talking about last year into this year. You're right. I agree. Luis Robert, potentially the number 1 pick if you do that same draft a year ago. Cease probably still goes number 2, and Tim Anderson probably goes number 3. And I'm not even sure who would be the first. Wilson Contreras probably would have been like 4, maybe. Okay, that's how bad the Cubs were last year. And now you look at it and you start to see it's a little more even. And Nico emerged, and now he got his 3 for $35 extension. So he's going to have guaranteed money before he turns 30 years old. And if he repeats his season from last year, which was almost he would have won the Gold Glove if it weren't for Dansby Swanson at shortstop. So now he goes to second base where he becomes the favorite to win the Gold Glove in the National League. And so I don't know if I'd take him ahead of Luis Robert, because Robert's ceiling, if he's healthy and things are right, again, it's just like Tim Anderson. It's lightning in a bottle. If things go right, the ceiling is higher than it is for Nico Horner. But if you're just trying to make sure you build a safer team, then there's an argument to be made for Nico Horner. Although Nico has had a few weird injuries himself, that would be a toss-up for me. Maybe I'd go the high risk and go with Luis Robert. And after that, it's real tricky.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. And we can do this probably at the All-Star break, and our answers might be completely different too. So we'll see how it plays out.